Market research has shown that 56 billion coffee pods ended up in the landfill last year. In 2014, this number was only 9 billion. So in the span of 5 to 6 years, the coffee pod consumption has 8x'd. And if we were to look at the coffee pod industry today, Nespresso, they sell one single coffee pod for about $1.12. Looking at the weight of one single pod, it's around 12.5 grams. And if we were to do the math to figure out how much it costs per kilogram of coffee from Nespresso, that number would equal roughly around $89 per kilogram. That's basically robbery in my opinion. But as investors, looking at this industry, these companies have literally struck gold. And the company that we're looking at today, Nexe Innovations, is ready to disrupt this market with their compostable coffee pod. What's going on, you guys? My name is Daniel, and here on this channel, we talk about stock market investing with a focus in Canadian growth stocks. If this is your first time here, subscribe and hit that notification bell for new videos on Canadian growth stocks. And today we're talking about Nexe Innovations, which is a stock that potentially could be growing massively in the future. So we're going to be doing a first look at this company and what I found out about it, as well as just the whole coffee pod industry. Nexe Innovations trades under the ticker symbol NEXE and is available on the TSX Venture. So for those of you guys who have Wealthsimple Trade, you can find Nexe Innovations on there. And if you're in America, I have the OTC symbol right on the screen. Originally, I wasn't going to do a review on Nexe Innovations. However, there's been a lot of chatter in my Discord group about Nexe Innovations, so I figured I would shed a bit more light on this company and do some research to show you guys what I could find on it. If you're interested if I ever buy into Nexe Innovations, you can check out my Patreon group down below. Also, timestamps are in the description, as well as they should be on the side if you're watching on desktop. Without further ado, let's dive right into the analysis. So the problem I mentioned earlier is that 56 billion coffee pods ended up in landfills last year. And that's quite a bit of trash if you were to ask me. And I think that this is a problem that needs to be addressed if the coffee pod industry is going to continue to grow at these rapid rates. And we already know that countries around the world are trying to ban single-use plastics, like plastic bags, plastic straws, cutlery, and things of that sort. And I think coffee pods are definitely on their radar, just because of how quickly this industry has grown. People love the convenience of a coffee pod because all you have to do is take it out of the shelf, just pop it in your Keurig machine or your Nespresso machine, press play, and it should make you a cup of coffee within about 2 to 3 minutes. Very easy, super convenient, and saves people time. Nexe Innovation realized this was a huge problem, and they tried to come up with a solution where they could make a compostable coffee pod that allows coffee drinkers to enjoy their quick, easy, convenient coffee while also being relatively environmentally friendly. This company's coffee pod biodegrades within 35 days under optimal conditions, and on average it's around 70 days according to their lab tests. They've been at this for about 5 years since they filed their first patent and spent about $35 million to bring this product to market, which is going to be launching very soon in this year. Before we move on, this video was done in collaboration with Nexe Innovations. There will be a bunch of prizes up for grabs, which I'll be going over the contest rules later on this video. However, the prizes up for grabs are one $100 gift card for the general community and 8 $50 gift cards. And these can be towards any of the 3 following companies: Tim Hortons, Starbucks, as well as the Very Good Food Company. And for those of your Patreon members, I have a special giveaway for you. We're giving away 5 $50 gift cards, and the details are in the Patreon member chats on Discord. Now we're going to go into a bit more detail about the product and how Nexe Innovation is planning to grow as a company. As I mentioned earlier, the product that Nexe Innovations is bringing to market is a fully compostable coffee pod. And I think this is to really highlight the engineering innovation that they have at their company, because compostable coffee pods are a fairly difficult engineering problem. Coffee pods undergo high pressure as well as high temperature, and there's water being injected into it. Typically, compostable materials are things that are paper-based, and we all know that paper hates water, as well as paper is not very strong under pressure or under heat. The fact that Nexe is able to make their coffee pod withstand this high pressure, high heat, as well as withstand water and not allowing that to puncture through is quite an engineering feat. On top of this, they're making sure that their entire product, from everything to the material to the ink that they use to print, is fully compostable and has no negative effects or toxins in there. As for the business model, it may not seem that exciting to you if it's just coffee pods. However, I think Nexe is going to be going into more plant-based packaging similar to GDMP. And this is just to showcase their abilities to produce plant-based packaging, and eventually they're going to branch out into other verticals. And this is according to their investor presentation, as well as some other news articles that they've been releasing. They may also consider licensing out their IP to other coffee pod manufacturers and continue to grow like that. And if they are going to go with the licensing model, I foresee this being one of the highest margin businesses that they could run. It's not going to give them the greatest revenue, but most investors like high margin businesses that also are recurring revenue. I did some further digging that I don't think any other YouTuber has done on Nexe Innovations, and a lot of people say that Nexe Innovations has about 20 different patents. In fact, they only have one patent right now, which was registered in 2014, but the 20 number really comes from they have 20 possible patents that they could file down the road. So these aren't patent applications that they've submitted yet, but they're patent applications that they've identified with their lawyers that could be of value in the future. But Nexe Innovations has made it clear that they're trying to build up a portfolio of IP to protect their innovation. Now let's spend a bit of time just talking about coffee pods and just how society views them. So I came up with a list of pros and cons based off of a few websites that I read. And the pros are as follows. Coffee pods are very convenient. The fact that you can just pull out a coffee pod, pop it into your Keurig machine, press play, and wait 2 to 3 minutes to get your cup of joe is quite revolutionary. There also isn't much of a mess to clean up. All you have to do is eject the coffee pod and chuck it in the trash and you're done. Coffee pods also provide a consistent experience to their users. The amount of water is controlled each time, the temperature and the pressure are also controlled, so you're going to get the same cup of coffee every morning when you pop that pod in and press play. And this actually works out quite well in the commercial space, where restaurants are using these as well as companies. They don't need to train any baristas, they can just get an average person off the street to do the simple steps of placing the pod in the machine and hitting a button, and they can get the same taste from cup to cup. Coffee pods are also considered cost effective if you're comparing it to buying coffee at the store every single day. As I mentioned before, Nespresso charges about $1.12 per pod. And if we compare that to like Tim Hortons or Starbucks, you're paying about $1.80 or more. And lastly, there are hundreds of thousands of coffee pod flavors out there with different companies coming out with their own pods. And now for the cons of coffee pods. Firstly, I am not a coffee drinker, but from what I've heard, baristas will always make a better cup of joe than any coffee pod machine can do out there. And yes, we can say that machines eventually could replace a barista. However, that machine would have to be fairly expensive to be able to do all the different steps and customizations which coffee machines can't do to date. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to cost you quite a bit in the future if you want a machine to do everything. Coffee pods are more expensive than brewing your own coffee at home. If you guys haven't seen the video by Graham Stephan, he makes his coffee for about 20 cents each day. And I reckon that some people make it for even less. And if you're comparing that to things like K-Cups or Nespressos, you're paying anywhere from like 65 cents all the way to $1.20 per coffee pod. And lastly, the coffee from coffee pods is not as fresh if you're to ground your own beans at home. And I'm sure that most coffee drinkers can probably attest to this because coffee pods, they have their coffee ground up at the factory, and when they're shipped and they sit on the shelf at the grocery store, they could be sitting there for about a couple weeks or even a couple months. And in that time, even though it's vacuum sealed, the coffee does go a little bit stale compared to a freshly ground cup of coffee. Although pod coffee doesn't taste as good as fresh coffee, we can see the market has spoken and they enjoy pod coffee mainly for the convenience, as they've 8x'd their increase of coffee pod consumption. So the details for the contest are as follow. All you have to do is follow 2 simple steps. First, leave a comment down below with what you think about coffee pods, comment on their cost as well as what they taste like. The second part is to be a part of my Discord community and comment with your Discord name so I can verify that. Now looking at some recent news from Nexe Innovation. We can see that they received a $1 million grant from the government of Canada in order to help them develop their Nespresso pod. Currently, they only have a pod that fits Keurig machines. However, they are in the phases of developing a pod that fits Nespresso machines. Nexe also announced that they were starting their own brand called Soma Superfoods, which is going to be selling their own coffee pods through this website. And this is a move that I expect was pushed heavily by their CEO, Darren Foots. Darren Foots was the president and founder of Granville Island Coffee Company, and he grew this company from a small artisan coffee shop into a nationally known coffee company. Nexe Innovations also gave some updates on their production timelines. They're looking to start manufacturing their coffee pods within the first half of 2021. They estimate they have a capacity to make up to 220 million coffee pods per year. So I expect they're going to take a little bit of time to ramp up in this first year, and in 2022, that's when they'll be producing around 220 million coffee pods if they don't expand. If they were to sell their $220 million coffee pods filled with coffee on their Soma Superfoods website at a price similar to Nespresso's at $1.12 per pod, that would net them revenues of $246 million per year. And I think this is what investors are looking forward to right now, as the stock has shot up quite a bit since they IPO'd. Now diving into some of their financial numbers that they gave on their investor presentation. The company has not been public long enough to report their first quarters, so we're going to be going off of some of the numbers that they gave in their investor presentation. For the balance sheet, they roughly have $18 million of cash on hand, and looking at some of the other documents that they filed before going public, they roughly have around $2 to $3 million in liabilities. Based on the number of shares that they stated in their investor presentation at 65 million and the price per share at $2.82, this values the company today at $183 million. They also have around 25 million warrants and options that have not been exercised yet, so this would dilute shareholders by around 40% when these warrants and options are exercised. However, the company will be able to raise a little bit of cash off these warrants and options. Most of these warrants and options are below $1 per share though. Now for the final part of the video, I also have to outline some concerns and risks that I have with this company. So first off, I have a concern with them trying to sell their own pods through their Soma Superfoods line, because this is going to take quite a large marketing budget to break into this already saturated coffee pod market. Sure, they have compostable coffee pods, however, there are other companies out there that also say that they have compostable coffee pods. Nexe Innovations coffee pods are better than their competitors because they are fully biodegradable in a regular composting bin, and they've proven that with studies. So this is the one edge that they have on their competitors. However, they may have to charge a premium on their coffee pods for the technology. We don't yet know the pricing, so once that comes out, I'm sure investors will be paying attention to that very closely. If you're an investor in Nexe Innovations, definitely look out for their marketing budget and see how that progresses over time. The third concern that I have is that the CEO and president are being paid quite large amounts compared to other companies who are in a pre-revenue phase. We can see the numbers on the screen right now are around $200,000 per year, which is a pretty hefty salary in my opinion. Typically with smaller companies, I expect the CEO to be paid maybe around $60K just to be able to, cover basic expenses, and the rest should be paid in equity. But we should also note that the CEO has around an 18% stake in Nexe Innovations, and the president has around a 3.5% stake in Nexe Innovations as well. So overall, the insider ownership for management will equal to just above 20%. The last concern that I have with this company is that in 2015, the CEO went to Cantech Letter. He reported that he had the world's first compostable coffee pod ready to take to market. So between 2015 and now, I'm not sure what the story is and I couldn't exactly find that out. So if you guys know, let me know in the comments down below. So this concludes my first look at Nexe Innovations. This is not a fully comprehensive review of Nexe Innovations, so if you're interested in this company, definitely do your own due diligence. There's been quite a bit of hype in the stock, and the stock has run up since its IPO. So my advice to you is do your own due diligence. If you like the company, then invest. If not, at least just keep it on your watch list. I found it personally interesting to look into this company and see what all the hype is about, and I can understand where some investors are coming from. I myself am personally not invested in this company yet, however, I will be keeping it on my watch list. I prefer to see a company that's generating revenue and have some sort of growth trajectory from quarter to quarter or even year to year, so that I can predict, a couple of years out what kind of revenues this company could be earning. I currently don't know how successful Soma Superfoods will be and what the adoption rate will be for the coffee pods versus how much marketing dollars they need to spend to acquire customers. So these are things that I will definitely be looking for on their first quarterly reports, and if you guys want, I can do an update on that as well. If you're interested in other small cap companies, check out these two videos right here. If you're there, I'll see you there. If not, keep up the grind and have a great day.